WRTV 6.
And manholes shooting several feet into the air in downtown Indianapolis. This sparked power outages and snarled the morning commute. And right now we are hearing from Indianapolis Power and Light. Let's listen in.
Of Customer Operations.
Good morning. I'd like to go through essentially some of the events that happened this morning and what we're doing right now in terms of restoration. At 6:34 this morning, we actually had an operation in our control center that we knew something was wrong. At that point in time, we didn't know where. At 6:48, we actually received a call from IFD that there was actually smoke coming out of a manhole just outside of here at North and Capitol. Obviously, we significantly dispatched our crews to this area. And at 7:20, we actually had to take further action to isolate essentially the electrical arcing on the 120-volt cables to limit further damage. And that actually caused additional customer outage, about 400 customers. On the north side at North Street, over to West Street on the west, Pennsylvania to the east, and New York to the south. At 9:43 this morning, we actually restored the area all down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we are diligently now restoring and looking to restore customers south of Michigan Street right now, all the way south of Michigan and also over to Meridian and Illinois. We do have significant damage to some of the electrical infrastructure around Capitol Avenue from about north to Michigan, and some of those customers are actually going to be staying out further until we actually make further repairs. So that's where we're at right now. We're continuing to work with IFD, and as we always do, to coordinate our activities. We've restored about 10 to 12 customers around Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're looking to restore about another 200 with the customers that are south of Michigan Street right now.
What caused the source of the problem?
This was actually electrical arcing, a short circuit on 120-volt cables in the street here close to Capitol Street right here on North.
How many explosions were there?
The explosions, actually, when the arcing happens, really what happens is you have an arcing, and they don't just continue. I don't know how many specifically, but they do kind of intermittent. So you'll hear kind of one, and this is at 120 volts, and you'll hear another arcing, so it basically will be intermittent. I don't know how many loud sounds of that arcing was heard.
How old is this equipment?
Pardon me?
What can contribute? I know you don't know the answer to what caused this situation, but what factors can contribute to something like this?
So with anything like electricity, the laws of physics will prevail. Electricity is always trying to find its way back to ground. So a good example, if someone were to dig in the street and cut one of our cables with like a digger, that would create a situation, a breakdown on the insulation that could actually cause that short circuit to ground, because electricity is always trying to find their way back to ground.
How old is this equipment that you're talking about with these cables, 120-volt cables?
Yeah, I don't know specifically necessarily the 120-volt cables in this area. I'm not sure at this point in time.
When was the last time this area was inspected, this specific area that caused the arcing, do you know?
Yeah, we're actually in the process of getting that information. We actually have an asset management website that has that detail. I don't have that right at my hands right now. We've been focused more on the restoration. I'm picking back customers, but I'll have that information for you.
Talk about those customers that are currently moving without electricity for a long period. Can you define what long period looks like?
It'll depend at this point in time, but really the focus that we have is really from about Michigan Street to the south, up to North Street, and around between Capitol and Illinois will be the areas that we have, and we have significant cable damage in that area. So our focus is to restore the customers we can right now, and then we'll be working 24/7 to be able to put back the infrastructure to pick those customers up, which will be about 200 customers, but there's one apartment complex that's probably the vast majority of those customers. We're actually looking to make temporary provisions to bring in diesel generators to restore that apartment complex. So they're actually trying to get that back even before our infrastructure will be back.
Is it a leap to say that this is an aging infrastructure issue, possibly?
No, I wouldn't say it's necessarily an aging infrastructure per se. This equipment in all metropolitan cities basically has a difference between some are relatively new that we've installed in the last couple of weeks. Some are actually 30, 40, 50 years old. But when you look at the infrastructure, even some of the cable cables that look to be much older, when you bring them out, they actually look brand new. So it's not necessarily the age, it's really the condition and the health of those assets.
You know, we've had a lot of bad weather, salt, moisture. Do you think any of that has compromised the cable?
Well, absolutely. The issue is not compromising the cable, but if there is like a little nick in the cables, we've had a lot of snow, and definitely salt is a contributor, because really water itself, pure water, is not a conductor of electricity, but any contaminants that you have, like salt that adds to the water, will actually enhance that short circuit from the cables to ground. So we've had a lot of snow, and that can contribute essentially to any kind of small imperfection in the cable will manifest itself if you have that electrical conductor between the conductor and ground.
So what long-term steps are you taking to repair this kind of thing, and is there any relationship between what happened on Mass Ave the other day?
So let me start with the last question first. I was the first one from Indianapolis Power and Light actually on the scene at Mass Avenue, and the two items are completely unrelated. What we had at Mass Avenue was a 13,000 volt termination chamber that actually failed, and that was the problem we had here. Here, it's actually 120 volt cables that actually in the street that caused the issue, so completely unrelated associated with that. Now, to your first question, what do we continue to do? The focus is always for us is on the asset management side of inspections and being able to look at our infrastructure. One of the things we've done, we've put in 357 swivel lock manhole covers from essentially all around Lucas Oil Stadium, heading north from about Capitol over to Pennsylvania up to about Monument Circle. Now, we have about 1,000 manholes across what I would say the mile square, and we continue to add each and every year 50 to 100 of those swivel lock manholes. But and we continue to do our inspections as part of our asset management and continue to look at the health of those and to replace assets when we find problems.
How many are locked right now?
That would be 357.
Out of 1,000?
Out of about 1,000, yes.
These swivel, like a swivel, a pop-up.
That's correct.
There is an explosion that they don't fly.
Basically, what they're designed to do is to actually pop up, in the magnitude of 4 to 6 inches, and relieve the pressure, and basically then reseat back down, and that's their intent.
People at home may say, why not go ahead and replace all of this? Can you explain why?
We continue to focus. We don't know necessarily what the long-term issues, the maintenance issues with these manholes, so we wanted to focus in what the areas around Lucas Oil and kind of the higher population areas, because we're concerned that if long-term, could we have a problem of getting into these manholes? So we wanted to get some experience instead of just doing them completely holistically, to do them in a progression and prioritize the location of those based upon the criticality and essentially the infrastructure in those areas.
So what's the schedule for completing all 1,000 manhole covers?
We at this point in time, we were doing somewhere between 50 to 100 a year, so that we've got about 600 to 700 left, but we will look to probably accelerate that.
But given the people that are heard about this today and are continually hearing about these rash of problems in the underground utilities downtown, they're saying, wait a minute, is this occurring in other older cities, New York, Chicago, Pittsburgh? We don't hear of these problems there. Is this a problem endemic to IPL? And if so, why doesn't IPL do what is necessary to secure the downtown? And then also comment about IURC calling you all to the carpet tomorrow morning.
So let me tell you that any city that has a downtown underground network will have problems. I think if you would Google, you can basically will see that there's problems at any metropolitan city that has this. The one thing about a downtown electrical network is it's very reliable, very reliable. But when there is an issue, the reason why you have that is the cables are all interconnected. So if you have the loss of one or two sources, it doesn't create any outage. Like the general distribution overhead outside the city, when you lose like one transformer, you have customer outage. Here, you don't have that. So if you look at other metropolitan areas like New York, like San Francisco, like Chicago, you'll see that they have problems. And again, the issue with electricity is the laws of physics will prevail. The electricity does want to find its way back to ground, and if there's some imperfection or someone digs into a cable, it will find its way back to ground.
Do you think the IURC is going to demand a step up in your schedule to get these swivel lock manhole covers completely replaced in the next Next few months, next year?
I'm aware we have a conversation with the commission tomorrow, and I'm sure, and we're glad to have that conversation and talk with the commission. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow.
A lot of downtown traffic lights are out. Are they going to be back up by rush hour?
There'll still be some areas that we have right here on Capitol in Illinois that probably will not be, but the areas that are going to be close to Illinois and Meridian should be back by rush hour.
Is there anything that IPL can do to prevent a recurrence of this during the Final Four?
I mean, we continue diligently working at ways in our asset management to focus on inspections, and so we continue to look at ways to be able to mitigate these issues, and so we will continue to do that. We will be focused between now and the Final Four to ensure that. So yeah, we're going to continue to focus on.
There's nothing. You can't guarantee that this won't happen during the Final Four.
I can't guarantee, because the fact is, again, because the laws of physics here will prevail, but what you'll find is that we have a very safe system, and it is a very reliable system. I know these occurrences get a lot of media attention, but our system is a very safe underground system.
Let me go back to weather. You talked about
safety and reliability. The company often said since 2005 the system is safe, it's reliable. This is since 2005 the most visible occurrence which affected the most people. Last August, the same issue happened during the lunch hour. So can you just defend that the system is safe and reliable, considering this may be incident number 18 since 2005?
Thank you. Yes, it is a safe and reliable network, especially when you put it in context with other downtown networks in other cities. And we have worked very closely to respond to the IURC's inquiries. We have taken steps to revise our maintenance and inspection cycles over time. We are complying with all of the follow-up items that we have had because of those prior data requests we've had from the commission. So yes, I believe that we're taking all the steps that we can to make this a safe and reliable network and to keep it that way. And just to elaborate on the question that was raised about the Final Four, it's part of our normal process actually to prepare weeks in advance, months in advance of these major events to make sure that we're well coordinated with Homeland Security, the city, other partners, and those processes have been in place. We'll of course revisit them to see if there's anything we learned from this particular incident, and that's part of our root cause analysis to do so.
Early enough that, I mean, fortunately nobody was walking by it, say like when that one exploded. That's a major concern for a lot of residents, that this is happening so randomly that there's going to be injuries at some point.
We understand those concerns, and that's why we take the steps that we do every day as far as the maintenance and inspection. So while we can't prevent every incident from occurring, I feel confident we're taking those correct steps.
Besides the conversation that IPL is having with the IURC, are you having a conversation with the NCAA and the Final Four organizers?
We have been in touch actually weeks and months in advance of this as part of our normal process to prepare for large events downtown. So yes, those conversations have been going on.
About this very issue, these underground events that are occurring in your infrastructure?
Let me turn it over to Joe Bentley. He can talk specifically to what we've been doing in recent weeks about the Final Four.
Yeah, for specific events and things like the Super Bowl as well as the Final Four, we work with the city, we work with IFD, we work with Homeland Security to make sure and coordinate those activities. So we do that months in advance, in some cases like the Super Bowl, years in advance in preparing for that.
But have you had a conversation with the NCAA or the Final Four committee about the reoccurrences of these underground events and what can be done to mitigate them?
I have not. Our focus is really with the local city officials, with IFD, with Homeland Security. So really, we have not had any conversations with the Final Four that I'm aware of.
Is there anything that will be stepped up locally? And we said preparations will be in place. Are there more inspection plans given what's happened in the weeks before the Final Four?
Yeah, we're going to look at that based upon our focus right now is restoring customers, and then once we get that done, we'll be focused on the mitigation steps that we can to help even provide additional assurance that we won't have any issues during the Final Four.
I still don't understand why it's only 50 manhole covers you're replacing a year to lock down. Why aren't you getting everyone out there to fix everyone ASAP so this doesn't before somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, the concern that we have is, again, that if we don't know what the long-term maintenance on these, and our concern is that if we have a manhole that has a problem and we're unable to get into it, then we have a bigger problem. So we're wanting to make sure that we don't create a bigger problem by putting 1,000 of these out here that we basically cannot get into. So that's our concern.
What is the difference between the swivel manhole cover and a regular manhole cover, and why would a swivel be more difficult than a regular manhole cover?
The swivel actually has the ability, the reason it has a swivel is to limit how far it will actually come up when there is a pressure event. So it's only going to come up about 4 or 6 inches and then drive and back down. The regular manhole cover doesn't have any really restriction of that 4 to 6.
And so if you have a swivel manhole cover that only pops up, then how do you get in there? Does an extra crew have to come out?
No, it's the mechanism because of that interlock that allows it to come up. There's additional, before with just a regular manhole, you can just take a crowbar and be able to pull it off. You can't do it with these. You actually have to go through special provisions to be able to get the manhole off the cover.
So why would it be more difficult if your crews are trained in the special provision, so when the thing pops up, they do the special provision, pop it up, you go in there and do it your job?
Yeah, we don't have any experience necessarily what happens with weather. We've had a lot of snow. We actually end up having some rusting. And so the issue is what is the long-term effects on the swivel lock? We know what is the long-term effects on a regular manhole. We can just pop it off. But the problem is what happens with corrosion on the manhole. Would it make it more difficult for us to get that off?
And there's AES has no experience in other markets where you have this kind of cold climate and cotton cold and snow, where you have that record of experience? Seemed to me you would.
We do have that experience, but we were the first AES company that actually deployed the AES, the swivel locked manhole.
One final thing, what is the difference in the cost of a swivel and the cost of a regular manhole?
Mike, do you know what the
regular manhole, it's ballpark is about $600 to $700
for which
to install a swivel lock cover.
And a regular manhole?
Well, that's kind of the differential between them.
So it's more, 600 more.
Yeah, it's about $600 to $700.
This is Mike Holtzclaw. He's our director of engineering, and we have a number of subject matter experts that are here. I know that all of you have individual questions, so we're going to go ahead and end this portion. I'm here, and we're available to answer any additional questions that you may have. We've got Mike. Joe has a wealth of knowledge, and Kelly's available as well.
Before they leave, could we get the correct spelling of these individuals who spoke so we don't misspell names?
Yes.
Okay, we're just wrapping up what you've been watching here on HTSN and on the RTV6 app, the press conference with both Kelly Huntington and Joe Bentley of Indianapolis Power and Light. We've learned some information, but it sounds like we have much more to learn here in the coming days. Now, they tell us what happened this morning, that video that we've shown you, that raw video of the explosion, that blast that sent a manhole cover flying into the air. Now, we're hearing that it was an arcing problem underneath the road. Now, we do know that the electrical system here in Indianapolis is underneath the surface of the road, and this is where we're seeing some of the problems. Whoa. Though, today's issue, while 4 or 5 different blasts were reported, we're hearing that they were, in fact, connected. However, today's blast, not connected to what happened earlier this week on Mass Avenue.